Thank you, Presiding Officer. And while I speak in this debate in a personal capacity, I draw members' attention to my honorary Vice Presidency of Rail Future UK and to my being the honorary President-elect of the Scottish Association for Public Transport. And by the way, in the current climate, I say I receive no pay whatsoever for either of these appointments. And perhaps also I should say, of course, that I'm a regular user of the One Scotland card, which gives me access to scheduled bus services throughout Scotland at no cost to myself. Now, it's a timely debate, in my case, to celebrate what's been achieved in public transport and to highlight some of the remaining challenges. Interesting contributions so far. I take it, given the remarks of Gavin Brown, that he is responsible for the fact that today flying from central London to central Paris is slower than it was in 1931, when the Imperial Airways service, which operated from Croydon to Le Touquet, cost 4 guineas, a lot cheaper than today, although, of course, the value of money is different. And I take it that Willie Rennie, in criticising proposals to spend more on capital expenditure and improve the economy, reductio ad absurdum, would abolish the entire capital programme, because that would be of enormous benefit to the economy. But I carry it a little further than perhaps he would seriously take it. Now, on our railways, we have a network in Scotland that makes a great deal more sense than many geographically. Less than 10% of rail journeys starting in Scotland end out with our country. And that's a smaller proportion than is the case for any other area of the Great Britain rail network. But that's to underplay two very important things about cross-border rail. First of all, only 10% or so of public transport journeys from Scotland to London are by rail. Most are by air. And that is a ferocious and unnecessary burden on our environment. Now, currently, times favour air. Travel times are slightly better by air, perhaps by around an hour. But the reliability of rail travel is substantially greater, and the nature of rail travel from city centre to city centre without mode change and transport that gives you access to Wi-Fi, hot and cold running drinks and relaxation means more relaxed, more ready for work passengers at journey's end. And if we look at what's actually happening on climate, they're having the worst of all winters on the east coast of the United States, telling them the effect of climate change. And on the east coast, we're seeing significant problems in getting access to water, which is now extending into the Midwest in the summer, showing that if you overexploit the environment will bite back. So the issue of high-speed rail is both economic but also climate. We have to get out of the air and onto rails. Now, in the shorter term, if we can speed up the journey, that's going to be helpful, and it has to happen soon. It will take some time to get HS2 into place, but there are huge economic benefits as well as huge benefits to the climate. So it's one of the most important projects for everyone who lives in this island and people who live around the world that we address that issue. I want to just say a few targeted remarks chosen more or less at random from some of the things that we might be thinking about doing that we haven't heard from before. First, perhaps, we need to look at the rail infrastructure to better support freight. We've seen huge success up to Inverness with Tesco putting its dry goods onto the railway network, and that's had huge number. If it's very brief, please.
The member give way, and I think it was in the member's remit when he did a lot for Freight Facilities Grant. I'd strongly support Freight Facilities Grant, but would you share my view that it's crucially important, particularly for North Lines, that we have a more dualling of track, because the basic problem we have is lack of constraint or lack of capacity in these lines?
Well, where freight's concerned, it's actually a slightly different problem, I may suggest. I do not underplay the value of dualling, but not for freight. For freight, if we're to get the fresh goods onto the rail network, the important thing is that we have a resilient network with alternate routing, so that the delivery of fresh goods is not compromised by technical problems that will occur in the best managed of networks. And I think that's where we need to freight enable more of the network, the alternate route round by Aberdeen. We've done quite a lot under the previous government and under this government. And to that extent, I hope that we'll see signalling between Aberdeen and Inverness become a priority. I mean, it's quaint and fascinating to see the token working between Elgin and Forres, but really a 160-year-old system might be capable of being updated. And by the same token, north of Inverness, it's perhaps time we saw a little bit about the plans to replace the obsolete, no longer just obsolescent, obsolete radio token system. And looking to roads, the success of the average speed cameras in the A9, saving lives, reducing accidents, and improving journey times overall for the mix of traffic that we have, I think indicates that we should have more of that on our road network across Scotland. I hope that Willie Rennie will speak to his colleague Danny Alexander, who should be prepared to change his mind, as others have done on other subjects. Presiding officer, I travelled on the Stirling-Alnwick-Kincardine line on the day it opened, travelling on the footplate of the Great Marquis, a steam train. I've diaried to travel on the first day of the Borders Rail. I travelled across the Forth Road Bridge in 1964, and the day it opened, my great-uncle was chair of the campaign committee in the 1930s for that, and I very much look forward to crossing at the earliest possible opportunity on the new road bridge across the Forth. We're making huge progress. There will never be a day when we don't have more things each and every one of us want to do. We have to prioritise. I think broadly we're making good choices. I look forward to much more being spent on rail, perhaps, than has been in the future as a share of the budget, but good progress, and congratulations to the government. Presiding officer.